All right, let's dive right in. We've all seen the headlines, right? The numbers on the screen are going wild. But here's the thing. There's a massive disconnect between the panic happening in the financial markets and what you're actually seeing when you go to the gas pump. Today, we're going to break down that gap. We're going to figure out just how close we might be to a real, tangible, physical shortage. So this is the central question, isn't it? At what exact moment does a crisis of numbers and computer trades, what they call a paper crisis, turn into a real, you can't get it, shortage of a commodity we all depend on? You know, it's a question with a timeline, and believe me, it's probably a lot shorter than most of us think.
Okay, so to really get this timeline, you have to understand this one crucial difference. It's like there are two parallel worlds. In one corner, you've got the paper market. Think futures, options, pure speculation. This world moves at the speed of a news alert, literally milliseconds. But in the other corner is the physical market. We're talking actual tankers on the water, real barrels in storage. In that world, it moves at the much, much slower speed of logistics. So right now, the paper market is screaming crisis, while the physical market is, well, it's still coasting on momentum from the past.
And that momentum, it creates this really dangerous illusion of calm. The reason you can still fill up your tank without a problem is because there's a buffer. Think of it like a reservoir. Tankers that were loaded up and shipped out weeks ago are still arriving at their destinations. We are essentially living off the supply of the past. But here's the critical point. That supply is not being replenished for the future.
This is such a great way to visualize what's happening. Think of the world's oil supply like it's a bathtub. So step one, the faucet, that's the new supply coming in, has been turned way, way down to just a trickle. But step two, the drain, which is all of us, the global consumption, is still wide open. We're using oil just like we always do. And the inevitable result is step three. The water level, our buffer, is dropping every single day.
So what's this water in the tub actually made of? Well, it's a few things. First, you've got those final shipments that set sail before everything got disrupted. They're just about all here now. Next, countries are dipping into their regular commercial stockpiles. And finally, you have the big one, the Strategic Petroleum Reserves, the SPRs. But, and you really need to hear this part, those reserves are like the fire extinguisher you see in a glass box on the wall. You can smash the glass and use it once to put out a fire, but it is not a faucet you can just turn on to solve a drought. It's a one-shot deal for an emergency, not a permanent fix for a severed supply line.
And that brings us to the countdown itself, because we can actually map this out phase by phase and watch how this disruption is expected to escalate from just a financial headache into a very real, very physical crisis.
Okay, let's walk through this timeline. Right now, we're pretty much in that first phase, days 1 to 5, the paper crisis. It's all about fear, headlines, price spikes, discomfort, but not a disaster. But look what happens next, between days 5 and 15. That's the transition zone. The last of the old supply is gone. Reserves are getting tapped, the alarm bells are really starting to ring. And then we hit the critical window, days 15 to 30. This is the physical crisis. This is when refineries might actually have to cut production. Rationing suddenly becomes a real possibility. And beyond that, well, that's uncharted territory, where this whole thing just cascades through the entire global economy.
Now, while that timeline lays out a 30-day window, some analysts are, well, they're a lot more concerned. This assessment here suggests that the critical transition, that point of no return, could happen in just 10 to 14 days. That's it, 2 weeks. That is an unbelievably short window for the entire world to react.
So, if that's the case, what are the canaries in the coal mine? I mean, how can we actually see this crisis shifting from paper to physical in real time? Well, there are very specific indicators that analysts are watching like hawks right now.
So here's what you need to watch for. First, the price for a barrel you can get right now, the spot price, will absolutely skyrocket compared to future prices. This leads to something we're about to define called backwardation on steroids. But you'll also see real-world signs. Refineries slowing down production, tankers just sitting out there in queues, unable to move, and maybe the biggest one, governments starting to whisper about rationing. You see, these aren't just theoretical market moves, these are tangible signs that the system is starting to seize up.
Let's just quickly break this term down, because it is a screaming alarm signal. Normally, oil for delivery in the future costs a little bit more, but in backwardation, that completely flips. The price for a barrel today becomes much, much higher than for a barrel delivered next month. And when that gap gets extreme, what analysts are calling on steroids, it's basically the market shouting at the top of its lungs that it is desperate for physical supply, right now, at literally any cost.
You know, it's so important to remember this isn't just about the fuel for your car. A physical oil shortage has a cascade effect that spreads incredibly fast. Oil isn't just fuel, It's the fundamental building block for petrochemicals, for plastics, for fertilizers. What that means is a shortage hits everything from manufacturing and transportation all the way to the price of the food on your table.
And why is this so hard to fix? It really comes down to the sheer scale of the problem. We are talking about a flow of 20 million barrels per day that's been disrupted. I mean, to put that into perspective, there's no off switch for that much demand around the world, and there is no on switch for that much spare supply just sitting around anywhere else. It's not a little leak, it's like a system-critical artery that's been clamped shut.
So we're left with this final thought. As we sit here and watch the days tick by, that water level in the bathtub keeps dropping, and this paper crisis gets dangerously close to becoming a very real, very physical one. And this, right here, is the core question we should all be asking ourselves. Forget the market noise for a second. What actually happens on day 15 when the tankers just stop arriving? That's the question that truly matters.